Got it.
Very good. Welcome everyone to presenters, and welcome to Greg. I don't think you've actually joined one of our sessions before, is that right?
Not recently. I have joined in the past. It's been about a year and some change since I've last come to a presenters meeting, but I've been to several of them, and
would you
they've
like to
always been
introduce
informative and good.
yourself, maybe, since you're
Okay,
the,
well,
our new...
let me introduce myself to you because I am the now the new ER SIG coordinator, and I have just started this, so I'm a little rusty myself on some of the details, but I hope to get up to speed very soon, and I'm going to listen carefully to all of your input, and I'm very eager to hear the talk today because it sounds very interesting, and I'm sad that I have to leave. I have to get to my airplane so that I can come back to Japan so that in February presenters, we can really get it going. So that's enough about me. When I mute myself and then turn it over to you guys.
And talking about February presenters, we do have a presenter lined up for February. Hendry from Indonesia will be talking to us, so mark that on your calendars. But today we have the wonderful Paul McAleese from NARA, and he will be talking about his extensive reading program at a university level course. You take it away, Paul, I guess.
Thanks, Sandra. Actually, I live in Osaka.
Oh, do you?
But,
okay.
I work in e-commerce, which is Nara. Yeah, I have a very long commute. It's about an hour 40 door to door to my university, one way. So, yeah, I get to develop lots of resources on the train. Anyway, Jack, sorry, Sandra, can I share my screen here? Is that okay?
Sorry, yes, just one
moment. I think I can.
Hang on a sec. Whoops, wrong button.
I'll just try it.
Yep, no, everything should be fine.
I'll bring it up now if it's okay. Let me see. Okay, I'll plug it in. Okay. Can everyone see that? All good?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so I'll just kick off then. So yeah, so as Sandra mentioned, I'm Paul. I'm an associate professor at NICE in the mountains of between Nara and Osaka, and yeah, I have around probably over about 10 years experience working with ER in different contexts. I also run a language learning websites and write and publish graded readers. Today, I'm going to talk about this topic here, bringing extensive reading to life in a university communication course. Actually, this is a slightly longer presentation I did at the JALT Q conference last year in Toyama. So it's sort of a reduced, shortened version of that. Let me start, I suppose, by giving you a bit of context. That's me, by the way, there. When I first started teaching this course, yeah, a little bit skinnier. still had no hair though. We started this. This is a professional communication course that we started about 6 years ago at my university. It started off as quite a small group class, probably about 20 students per class. Now it's around about 40 students per class. I'll just change the slide here. Now what? I'm going to go back all the way. Sorry, can I just unshare my screen? So I'm in completely the wrong place. Just a second here.
Yep.
Go
Take
back
your time. That's fine. Don't worry.
Go back to the top there. Okay. That should work. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know why that screen's coming up there. I'd have to go for backwards. Okay. So yes, sorry, this course we started about 5 years ago. It's a mandatory course, and it's for reasonably large groups of Japanese university students, and it's called a professional communication course. But in reality, it's more of a sort of a general communication course, building, listening, speaking, reading skills. But we sort of talk a lot about more professional contexts, like, for example, business trips, meetings, job hunting, conferences, and so on. But yeah, the key thing is it's a mandatory course, and the groups are quite large. So when we started it, we really wanted to sort of tag on an ER component, a sort of an ER self-study component, because we didn't have a lot of class contact time, and obviously we wanted to get the learners interacting or building skills outside the class. But we realized from the get-go that because it was a mandatory course, of course, a lot of the learners were going to be we're going to need a little bit of a push with regards to motivation doing ER. So we knew that was going to be a bit of a challenge for us. So this is just a few ideas that we've picked up over the years on things that worked on getting the learners involved and reading in ER. So I've got the aims of the course written here, but I won't sort of go into them in a lot more detail. How come I can't change my slides? Oh, there we go. So the first thing we learned was that we had to get the learners buying into ER from the very beginning of the course. And it wasn't just telling them how to sort of access the readers or how to choose level appropriate readers, but it was basically what ER was and how it could help them. We sort of realized that a lot of our learners, I think it's kind of typical for maybe Japanese learners, is that if they read something in English that was easier than something they usually read, then they automatically thought it wasn't useful for them. If they weren't sort of checking copious amounts of vocabulary in a text, then they sort of naturally thought, oh, this isn't helping me, or it's childish, or it's too easy. So we had to sort of sell it to them. Well, we found we had to sell it to them at the very beginning and spend a little bit more time telling them about what it is and how it's beneficial to them as learners and how it's a good use of their self-study time, which obviously we're competing with other courses and their research time. So this is the photo here of my my co-worker holding one of the sort of pre-course guidance sessions. Another thing we sort of learned is even in the first classes of the courses, to actually get the learners getting the books, getting the readers, getting their hands on the readers, and even, if possible, starting reading in actual class time in the first class. So this is just a page of the course booklet here, and I always do these sort of warm-up tasks at the beginning of courses so the students can find out about each other. And so one of the questions is they have to choose one ER book, choose their first book, and just make a note of the title and the level. So this gets them actually choosing their first readers in class, and I as the instructor, I can sort of be there to sort of give them guidance about sort of level specific readers, or maybe even recommend readers that might be useful for them. So getting them on board at the very beginning, and actually taking time to explain why it was sort of useful to them as learners. And that way we found we didn't get learners coming to us sort of halfway through the course going, oh, I don't even know how to access the readers, or they still hadn't read anything. We never had that, or we have never had that since we started doing this, because usually in the end of this first class, just the last 10 minutes, we'll actually have them start physically reading the book they select. Then it was, obviously we were leaving a lot of this up to them as their self-study. to do ER. But we also realized that we had to sort of integrate it into our class activities more. So obviously they're doing a lot of the reading outside the class. But we found that actually incorporating that into in-class activities really motivated them more to read, because they are sharing their experiences of reading with other learners, and they were sort of finding out about other books that were useful or interesting. I'm not sure if you don't know what speed-mingle activities are, they're just these activities where you have the learners stand up and get together with a partner, and then after a short time, they have to switch to a new partner and sort of go around the room, sharing interviewing different partners. So if you see the picture here on the left, you can see them sort of interviewing your partners, and then after about, I usually set the timer for about 6 minutes or so, and then the timer goes, and then the inside learners rotate clockwise, and the outside students to stay where they are. So we started doing these speed mingles with readers. They were reading outside class. So that would start by obviously filling out their information here on the on the left. And you'll notice that we're not asking them for any details of the readers. We're just asking them basic things like the title, the level, where they read the book, how they read the book, the genre, and just giving the book a rating and their general opinion of the book. So we're very careful not to sort of get them to go into plot details or character details, because, I mean, obviously that sort of it's not really ER, really. It's more intensive reading. We wanted to stay away from that. So they would go around and interview these different partners in the class, and they'll get to share their book recommendations with other learners. And then after the activity ends, I would usually sort of summarize what happened as one group, and make a sort of note or announce the most popular readers that they were sort of coming up with. And maybe I would also make some recommendations at the end as well. So that's one type of activity we found worked well with the learners. And then we also sort of turned this speed mingle into a mini poster activity as well, where they were, instead of filling out this form, they were actually making one-page posters or mini posters about a reader that they accessed. And once again, we're just asking for very basic information about the book, not about the sort of the plot or anything like that, just their opinion and the sort of the level of the book, the genre, stuff they could probably get off the back or front cover. And sometimes what we would do is we would just leave it open, say, okay, just choose any book that you enjoyed reading and make your poster about it. And other times, what we would do is we'll give them a list of readers that were sort of related to our course, i.e. professional communication, and let them choose, say, one of 20 titles, and then make their poster about that. In COVID, this was really easy just to change into an online activity. So basically, and when COVID hit, we went on sort of online, obviously, classes. And what they would do is they'll create their posters on PowerPoint and just record over the video. Record the audio onto the poster file, and would have them upload them to this shared drive. And then they obviously all had access to the same shared drive, so they could watch other learner presentations as well. And one of the tasks was, for example, here, I watched 3 other book presentation files, and just note the name of the presenter and the title that they talked about. I actually like this activity so much, I actually made it part of the tests that we have in class. So we have these 2 tests throughout the semester, and they both have speaking components. So I thought this would be great for the speaking component, because the classes are so big, it was difficult for me to sort of evaluate them in real time are doing these mingle activities. So if they upload the poster, then other students could be sort of looking at it, as well as I could get a chance to take a better look and give them a score. But when I say give them a score for these mini posters, it was really, I'll give them like these criteria. You need to speak for 3 minutes. You need to give your opinion of the book. You can't repeat content, and you have to obviously keep it in English. And there might be some other thing that we're looking at, for example, connective language in a simple presentation that I would look at as well. And then what else do we have here? Another thing we found worked quite well was these weekly book clubs. Now these are things where what we do is we assign all the learners one extra book each week, and in this case it's all the same book. And then obviously that they read that book, reader at home, and they come back the next week, and in small groups they will just share their opinion of that book, or the most useful point of advice, the most useful thing they found out about the book. And each week they'll be doing their book clubs in different small groups. So for example, in this one here, I've assigned all the book 10 Ways to Be Smart Online to read. And then the next week, this is part of their course booklet here on the right. The question is, so obviously read this book, and then what is the most useful advice this book gives? Because this is obviously one of those self-help style books. And then they'll just discuss it in groups and make a very brief memo of what their other group members said about the book as well. I mean, but this works really well because we could do this because we had an ebook subscription library. But I mean, and you could still do this with the print book library, I suppose. But obviously you can't assign them all the same book with the print book library. But I mean, you'd have to sort of give them different books. So these were the weekly book clubs. And excuse me. And this way we could also get them reading material that was more relevant to the actual, obviously course content. So we're doing professional communication. And we found quite a lot of books that can actually be applicable to what we were doing. Actually, it disappeared. For example, the Halico Business Reader Series was a real great match for our course, because I had books about presenting and business meetings, office conflict. The 10 Ways series was also quite good because they had sort of work-life balance, or as in this one here, 10 Ways to Be Smart Online. So that sort of lent itself well to our sort of general course content. So just finally, one other thing that we sort of found useful, or we needed to do, was to integrate the ER somehow into our course grading system. Obviously in ER, ideally we don't want to be tying this into a grade. We want them to be sort of reading because they want to read, but in reality this is a mandatory course, and this was another motivation that we sort of had to put in there. So as you can see here down the bottom, 10% of the final grade of the course was doing ER. The target was 100,000 words read. To get that, they have to pass the quiz for the books to get the words read. You might think that's not that much for a university course, but this was only an 8-week course, so it's quite a short course. And also, we found it quite useful to have an extra bonus there down the bottom. You can see that a 5% bonus for total words read over 150,000, because we always know there are like a small number of learners that really get into it and they read a lot. So we wanted to leave that there for them to sort of aim for the sort of more prolific readers. But also we've integrated it into the test 1 and test 2 grades, with the spoken component being the submitting that book poster presentation. And also the course booklet, those mingle activities are recording information, that all goes in there. So that's all part of that sort of goes into the grade as well. So it's actually integrated across most of the grading we do. We've found that I think we used to have a higher target for the learners. I think it was 200,000 words, but we just found it was just too high, and some of the learners just gave up, or they maybe even tried to cheat. So we decided to be a bit more realistic about it, but add that bonus point system there that could sort of reward the the learners that were reading a lot more. So this is I mean, we've been doing this course for 5 or 6 years now. We keep trying to sort of improve it each year, and it's far from the finished product. It's a work in progress. But these are just a few of the things that we found useful in our context. There are quite a few other things that we did also find useful. And if on my website, I've included them and a sort of a summary of these ones as well. So I'll just quickly give you the link there if you're interested in getting that. I'll just unshare my screen here. Okay. So this is my website, and if I just go down to maybe reading, yeah, here it is. This is a summary of the things I'll be talking about today, plus some other activities that we've found useful in the class. I'll post the link there if any of you are interested. You can also get the templates, a lot of them here as well, I think. Okay, unshare the screen here, and there's the comments chat. Okay, so that's basically everything from me. So I'm happy to take any questions or share any ideas with you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now if anyone would like to ask a question, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, I will start then. Okay, so you said you give the 5% bonus for reading more. How do you actually do that? Do you mean you just take their grade and just add an extra bonus 5% to it? Is that as simple as that?
Yes.
Or?
Yep. Yeah, it's exactly that. So what happens is that the target is 100,000 words read, and if they read 100,000 words, then they get that 20%. But if they read 50,000 words, they get 5%. So it's proportion of that 20% that they get. So it's not like they reach the target, and they don't reach the target, and they don't get anything. They get a proportion of what they read. But for the strong readers, they've got to go up past that 150 to get the extra 5%. Once they get over 150, then they get that 5%. They get tagged. It gets tagged on. So yeah, it's just added on.
And you say it was a eight-week course, did you say?
Yes, it's an 8-week course.
Although, how did you come up with the 100,000 over 8 weeks? I'm just kind of curious to.
Actually, to be honest, they have a little bit more time with the extensive reading. There are 8 weeks of courses, but it probably works out. I forgot, but it's a bit longer than that. They have to act. The time window is longer for their access to the readers. How do we work it out? Good question. We fiddled with it a lot, the targets, and yeah, we were sort of thinking, oh, okay, 10,000 words a week, maybe that's too much. It really was just trial and error and getting feedback from the learners, and we just found that I don't remember the exact details, but at the beginning it was something like 200,000 words, because I was being over ambitious and I was trying to push them too hard, and some students, our learners, said, okay, this is too much, it's interfering with research. So we had to scale it back, and then we decided we also wanted to use Word Engine which is a completely unrelated vocabulary learning site. You know, in an ideal world, I want them to doing 3 or 4 hours ER a week. I think 1 hour, maybe 1 or 2 hours a week is probably the most we're gonna get out of most of them. So yeah, I don't really have a mathematical figure. Most of our learners are reading in about 110 words per minute, if that helps. But yeah.
And what level are the participants of the course? What English
Okay,
level?
yeah, that's a
And
good
also,
question.
yeah.
They are actually first year postgraduate, so first year master course students.
Oh,
So starting your postgrad. They are the comparatively lower proficiency level learners that we have. So what we do is we have a placement at the beginning, and it's just divided into 2 strands. The slightly lower proficiency learners and the higher proficiency learners. The higher proficiency learners get to go into more specialized, courses like research presentation or research writing, where the lower group, they get the professional communication, and that's just based on a TOEIC placement test. It's quite simplistic, but yeah, that's how it's done.
So the lower level only are doing the extensive reading with you. Are the other groups exposed to extensive reading at all?
No, not at all at the moment. We don't actually have a very, very extensive print book library, because early on we decided to go with the online subscription site. So we're using X Reading, purely because we didn't really want to set up a print book library, or we didn't already have one, and it just worked for us better in this context, at least. So yeah, the higher level learners don't get any access at all. I mean, we have a library of readers that they can access if they want, but we don't sort of promote it or go into it in the other courses. But yeah, maybe we could. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I could keep going with questions, but would anybody else like to ask a question before I ask them all for you?
That's quite funny. I know that, Sandra, you have a print book library, so you're the other side of the fence, and we did the ebooks. But I did used to use print books, and I don't think one system is necessarily better than the other. I think they both have their advantages. A lot of our learners do say that they would prefer to read print book, and I get that, because I read a lot of graded readers myself on the train on my smartphone, and it really does hurt your eyes.
It really does, yeah. But I totally understand the access is something that is, I mean, with an ebook, it's just so much easier to access, especially as you said, like if you're having a book club and you want, 10, 20, 30 people reading one book, that can be a little bit prohibitive if you've only got print copies. So yeah.
Yeah, and we have about 250 students each year and going through this course. So yeah, the ebook library works better, at least with what we're doing here.
So one thing I wanted to ask about was book selection. With a print library, it's quite easy to say, okay, all the books over here are around kind of what you want. You can kind of give a little bit of guidance, if you want something that's a mystery or something that's more serious or something fiction, non-fiction. But with something like X Reading, I mean, obviously you can sort by genre and things like that, but do you guide the students? Do you have any way of helping them with their book selection? So like you had the Helico books, obviously related to the communication course. Is that because you've guided the students towards those books, or have they naturally just gravitated towards them?
Okay, so we have this ER program, and basically they have to do all this ER outside the class. And then in addition to that, as part of that, we will also assign some of the readers for them to read, or read within a group of readers that are related to the course. Although most of it is just them reading whatever they want. Probably, I don't know, 80% of it. And then some of it we're assigning or saying you have to choose from this group for this particular activity. No, we chose them. We chose that Haliko series because we found it and we found, oh, this is nice. This is actually business English. This guy, Suzuki-san or whatever his name is, goes around and makes all these mistakes in his business meeting and how he learns and comes back better. And I thought, oh, okay, this is really good for our course. So now we've actually physically gone through the libraries and looking for things like that. It's quite hard to sort of relate fiction to what we're doing in our course, but we say that okay, here's some good fiction books as well. Go away and read them. It doesn't matter if they're not related to the course, but sometimes they do have to do the ones that we assign them. As
that was what I was going to ask, was whether or not you actually find that they're reading more nonfiction because they feel that that is more relevant to the course rather than fiction, even though some studies have shown that actually reading a lot of fiction can help improve your grammatical skills and general English skills, possibly even more than reading just non-fiction. So
yeah.
what kind of
Okay, so so we're a postgraduate. All our researchers are in the sciences, so they're materials science, bioscience, and information science. So generally, I think that nonfiction is probably slightly more popular with our learners compared to other universities. But I would say, looking at the data, still probably more fiction being read. But compared to other universities that I've done ER with, they probably have a preference for nonfiction. But there still isn't a huge library of nonfiction readers out there. I mean, it's getting bigger. There's the Seed Careers series, I think it's Seed, about being a drone pilot or becoming an IT specialist.
Yeah, future jobs.
Future jobs, yeah. And then of course all the Haliko Ways 2 series and the business readers. There may have been a couple of other series, but yeah, it's not a lot. So but I would still say, even with these learners, fiction is more popular, but it might be just because there's a lot more fiction there. But when they get into reading a fiction series, then they often get hooked into the series, which is quite good. So yeah.
And out of all of the books that they read, like what percentage would be books that you have recommended? So you say you've got
that's
like
a good question.
Yeah,
I don't really have that data. I will often I will often recommend books at the end of each class, and just as optional reading and giving them ideas, because they're all about sort of the 800 headword level. I'm not quite sure what that is in Yomiyasusa. But sort of upper beginner. What's that? Yeah, upper beginner, probably Sefer A2 level. So yeah.
And hopefully you're getting a lot of people reading your books as well.
Yeah, I mean, of course I want them to be reading my books, but my books are mostly fiction. And I mean, I will say that try this book, because there's a whole series of them. Sometimes I will, but I'm a little reluctant to sort of sell my books to a professional communication.
I think you should.
Although they are on X Reading.
They are on X Reading, and they are very good. So I think they would be really good for that level, from what you're saying.
The thing is, when we assign books, we have to be careful also that even the lowest level reader can actually read it and pass the quiz at the end to get the words read. The language learning tips books I authored are just slightly too hard for them. I mean, most of them can read them and pass the quiz, but there's a small number of students. It's like a level 6 on X Reading. So I can't really sort of give them as assignment. But I can say, here are some great books by a great author.
Well, I think the breaking free would definitely be relevant to a communication course. I mean, having, university students and the experiences of studying abroad.
Yeah, some of them get into them, and some of them don't. So yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any?
Yes,
I
please.
don't know,
Somebody else. I honestly, it could just be me and Paul talking.
The
But
Sandra and Paul show. We'll start talking about New Zealand soon, so you better, someone better
No.
jump in. Okay, I'm not even checking. There's nothing here.
Yeah,
There's no
Kimberly.
comments.
Is that
Oh, Kimberly, sorry, did you have a question? Sorry, Kimberly. Oh,
I
no,
think
that's
she's
a
just saying
No,
thumbs
no,
up
I
from
was
New Zealand.
I was supporting the talk about New Zealand.
But I've got all these sheep in my background I can start talking about.
I know.
We're all
It
related.
looks so delightful.
I just remembered Sandra's still recording this.
I am still recording, so
It's okay.
keep it
It's
seemly.
okay. Oh, yeah.
So how long have you been doing the course with in its current iteration?
Oh, well, we sort of try to improve it every year, but the course has been running for about 6 years, I think.
Okay.
It'll be maybe the 7th year in April that we've been running it. I mean, it's always pretty much the same course, but we'll always make some adjustments to it, especially around the sort of self-study components. Like, for example, as I said before, the ER, the reading goals, the words read goals, and the grade weightings. But we're always looking for sort of things we can do better, and so yeah, it's still a work in progress. It has it's sort of been a little bit too eccentric to date, because we've had to do that because of for a number of reasons. But I think we're being able to move away from that pretty soon. So we might be able to change the course book and get into some real, actual practical professional communication skills. But yeah.
So a bit of a strange question maybe, but you've been doing it for 6 years. If you could tell yourself 6 years ago something that you've learned since then about how to run an ER program within your course, what kind of advice would you be giving yourself?
Yeah, good question. Probably, I would say, I at the beginning I had to sell it to them more. I suppose I was a bit lazy. I just thought, give them a target of words to read and incorporate that into the course grade, and everyone will do it all. And I gave them a lot of reading, and it didn't work. And I would have told myself to put a bit more work into selling it and promoting it and explaining the benefits of well, for a start, what ER was and how it's not only helping your reading fluency, but also for vocabulary, grammatical awareness. And I would also be reading more of the books that I'm expecting them to read. I found that I read a lot of them around their level, so I can actually have conversations with them. Obviously, I can't talk to all of them because there are way too many students, but I can sort of engage with them when they ask me about it, and I'll say, what did you think about this? Or how did you feel about that? And I think it's important to actually read them as much as possible.
I agree.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, and you're on the same page, and the learners say, oh, you've read it. Oh, it sort of says something to them, I think. And I suppose that's where I sort of started getting into writing the readers as well. So I was reading a lot of them. So yeah, that's probably what I would have said to myself. And then of course, integrating it more into the classroom activities on a very, very sort of almost superficial level, just to get them talking about the books and whether they like the books or not, and which books they liked, and talking with not just the same partner every week, but just different partners in different groups every week, mixing it up. But you know, I think it's probably the same for everyone. In an ER program, there's always going to be learners that don't read a lot, and you can only go so far. And there are a few other readers on the other sort of extreme who just read an awful lot, which is great. So yeah, I wish I'd read more when I was a student. Sorry, is that Jackie? Did you have a question?
Yeah, no worries. How did you come up with your percentage of the percentage of the grade? Yeah.
So 20%. How did I come up with 20% of the grade being ER? Good question. So that's one thing that's changed a lot as well. I think it started maybe more, and then less, and then more again. We found that less than 20% learners could potentially just not do it and get the credit, so that they're getting, they've still got 80% sitting there on the grade waiting. 30% we found was too much, because it's just some people just don't, they would rather do some kind of other self-study, we found, and we felt it was a little bit unfair to make it 30%. So if they didn't do any of it, they might, we want them to be doing some of it, but it wasn't sort of as balanced as we wanted. So that's our sort of magic number is now 20%, and I think we will keep it like that, at least for the foreseeable future. It seems to work, like the sweet spot for these students. But yeah, it was sort of a trial and error thing. We didn't go to any literature or anything like that. But yeah, as you know, each group of students is different, and each teaching context is different. And yeah, it's
right.
Try it. We do get a lot of. We try to get a lot of feedback from the learners. We have quite comprehensive questionnaires at the end, telling us how they feel about ER and how they feel about different kinds of books, which helps us with that.
Mm-hmm. Do you give them a level test at the beginning and they can only read within like their level, or you give them the whole library?
Yeah, we let them access the whole library. I mentioned this guidance session we have at the beginning of each course, and we'll go through how to choose level appropriate readers, and we'll talk about, there are these things for, I think X reading has a place you can go to check your level, or you can just like read 100 words and count, are you understanding more than 97 words out of the 100, then you're probably about right. And then there's always, if in doubt, just go for an easy reader and just work your way up to about, some 98, 97% comprehension. But no, we don't restrict it for the learners. We sort of felt that a learner might see a reader that they really want to read, but it might be a slightly higher level. We would rather have them read that reader and maybe struggle through it and then sort of come back to their ideal level later. So we didn't want to put any constraints on it. If they want to read higher level books, go for it. But yeah.
All right, thank you, Paul. This has been really great to hear. I got to run. So you guys, I hope you enjoy the other answers to his questions, and let me know what's going on, and hope to talk to you all later soon. And thank you very much. But okay, we'll see you all next time, right? Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Good night.
Okay, well, we'll keep going for a little bit because I've still got a few questions. Okay, buy-in. You were talking about the number one thing that you said was about trying to, basically convince people that extensive reading was something that was worthwhile doing. How did you do that?
Yeah, basically we just, I think I may even have a slide. We just talked about some research that had been done on ER and how it improves, for example, obviously reading speed, vocabulary, and grammar. If you go to, like, for example, hang on, I don't actually have the slides that.
Was this a presentation you gave, or was it in a booklet in their handbook, or was it? Yep. And was it in Japanese? Was it in English?
Hang on, I'll just share my screen again. So this guidance is where at the beginning of each course that we do this in English only, and excuse me, where did they go? So yes, we will just sort of mention some of the research that have been done. Can you see that slide?
Yes.
We would mention, the research about, Robin Cano Waring and Aka about, it being beneficial for their, fluency, vocabulary, and grammatical awareness. And we would obviously explain to them what ER was, and it's about reading much larger amounts of sort of comparatively easier texts, and about the sort of that 97-98% sort of comprehension level that we're sort of that sort of sweet spot for reading. But we wouldn't go into obviously specifics of research, because we're doing all this in English. But we'll tell them the sort of basically the justification behind it, or the sort of research behind it. We also had this graph of data that compared ER to amount of ER done to TOEIC scores. I forgot the actual source, but it was over a number of years, and it was quite, it was millions of words. But they could see from the data that it did actually even increase things like TOEIC scores. But yeah, we obviously, because this is in English, so we wouldn't be going into a lot of detail. But we wanted to sort of, a lot of, at least our learners, they sort of appreciate the fact that you're backing it up with research, because they're all researchers. They want to see what's the actual, why they're doing it. And if you're showing them things like this, and at least in their minds, it really makes a difference. They can see studies have been done and published that say it's a good use of their study time. So yeah, and these learners are really busy, and they have lots of things to be doing. They're in their labs late at night, doing their research. So yeah, we're competing with that.
So Kimberly's just put in the chat here, Nishizawa et al. Is the study. I'm not sure what year roughly.
Yes.
I seem to remember.
Yep.
I can't remember what the year was.
Yeah, I think that's the one. And the only thing is that that actual study was it was millions of words that they were reading to increase the TOEIC. It was quite a lot, wasn't it?
Yes.
Kimberly, do you remember, Kimberly?
2014 she's got here, but Kimberly,
yeah.
Over 7 years.
So
yeah.
I think at least 2 million words.
Exactly. Yeah. So we weren't getting really anywhere near that, but we were showing them the graph anyway, because.
Yeah, I think for me that study really encapsulates that it has to be extensive reading over a long period of time. But then once it is extensive and over a long period of time, you do see the really good results. So that's why I really like it.
And it's also really hard to implement in a short university course.
Yes, no, I think their advantage is the fact that it was a technical college, so that it could control students' courses from the senior high level to the end of the technical study. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right though, we're not really doing ER, are we? At least in our course, 100,000 words is sort of a drop in the bucket. But yeah.
Well,
it's based on the same sort of...
I would say that, okay, your students are not going to actually learn any meaningful amounts of vocabulary, but what they will do is improve their reading comprehension. They'll improve their reading speed. They'll improve their reading comfort. They'll have less stress and anxiety. They'll be more motivated to read. They'll be motivated to learn English. There will be a lot of attitudinal changes as well, so okay, I know that everybody really focuses on vocab because it looks easy to measure, but reading, I think that the reading construct and the vocabulary construct they're very different constructs, and so even though they're related, and you certainly cannot read without vocabulary, I think everybody focuses on, you can learn all these words, but actually you're not going to learn all those words until you're reading millions of words.
But you still get benefits without reading the millions of words, is what you're
you get so many benefits. Oh my God. We shouldn't focus on vocab, but I understand why we're focused on vocab, because it's a concrete demonstrable item that we can take to university course administrators and say, see, look, this will help students. Whereas like if you just say, oh, it'll help improve their reading comprehension, they'll be like, well, we can just do an intensive reading comprehension course. And it's like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also the talking about TOEIC, I mean, because of the, what should we say, the larger exam focus in Japan, those kind of things really do have an effect on motivation. Yeah, if you tell a kid that they're going to be able to increase their test score, that really does, I think, more here than perhaps in other countries, the exam focus,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
or trying to get a budget to pay for things like extra reading. The TOEIC
Yes.
thing speaks volumes, for better or worse. But yeah, just going back to what
Sometimes you have to massage the truth to get the funding.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Kimberly, what you just said is very true. And if we can get the ball rolling with some of these students into true extensive reading, then we'd be very, very happy. I mean, this is just like, it's a small amount of reading, but if some of them can actually go on after that and actually do a lot more, then we'd be very, very happy. But yeah, it's a constant battle.
Now, has anyone else got any other questions before I stop the recording section of the evening?
I'll look at the comments. No, I don't think so.
No.
Not so far.
No, I think that's probably okay. Well, I'll stop the recording here. Thank you very much, Paul. That was very interesting.
You're welcome.
We'll keep talking for a bit. So
I hope you guys found it useful.
absolutely wonderful. Thank you.